Time now for some roster construction. Tony, I'd love to get your thoughts on this. It's your first time joining us since the offseason. I have no idea what you're thinking about the Mets roster. We have not discussed it ever prior to this. Do you think that they need to change up their core?
Honestly, I'm not sure it can hurt. And don't get me wrong, these are good ball players we're talking about in the core. But you go back to, and I'm not including Juan Soto in this because he was new this year, but you go back to 2021 when the rest of this core really came together. That was a bad year. 2022, they won 101 games, but it sure didn't look good at the end. 2023, another bad year, historic trade deadline sell-off. 2024 was really the only good one of the bunch. So if you're looking at ways to shake things up, I think you have to start talking about the core. The problem is it's very difficult to do that. Juan Soto's under contract. Francisco Lindor's under contract. Those guys aren't going anywhere. Brandon Nimmo, maybe you could talk about trading him, but that's kind of a deal that no one wants to take on at this point. So the one way you can really shake it up is letting Pete Alonso walk. But you let Pete Alonso walk, you are objectively a worse offensive team. So I look at it and I say, yes, in a vacuum that makes sense. I'm not really sure how they do it. Unless someone has maybe a creative idea, Hannah, I don't know. You tell me.
Oh, I do have a creative idea. So David Stearns has talked about wanting to prioritize run prevention, which is not just pitching, but defense. And that gets at, we've talked on this show, how do you get the defense to be better when all those guys are under contract? The one who isn't is Pete Alonso. If you let him walk, you have first base open. I would love to see the Mets talk to Juan Soto about transitioning to first base. Yes, already. I know he's only in the second year of his contract, and he's still in his 20s, but he is a bad defensive outfielder. By StatCast metrics, he was the Mets' worst defensive player last year, and you see they had him take some ground balls at first base this year. If you move him to first base next year, you are prolonging the time that he's not clogging up the DH spot, and you're opening up a corner outfield spot for a better outfielder and also a good hitter. So you're able to add offense while improving your defense. Listen, just getting Pete Alonso out of first, and getting Juan Soto out of right field improves your defense right there. This is not like an unprecedented move. Bryce Harper did this. A star of Juan Soto's caliber, certainly, he did it for the good of the overall team, and now he's a really good first baseman. He really applied himself to learning first base, and people say he's like a Gold Glove caliber first baseman now, and it's allowed him to prolong his defensive career and keep his bat in the lineup even when his arm has been hurt. I mean, they did that for injury reasons, and now that's just his position going forward. That would be a great move for Juan Soto. Even if 10 years from now he's DHing, you still get a decade of having that DH spot available for roster flexibility.
I don't hate the idea, but know this. It's not easy to just go over to first base and think you're going to be a great first baseman. You have to go and put the work in. You have to put the time in. Bryce Harper has been able to do that. I remember years where the Yankees fooled around with Gary Sheffield at first base. It was an unmitigated disaster. We all remember Mike Piazza trying to make that switch, going and play first base. It did not go well. So you have to have buy-in, number one, from Juan Soto. And number two, I think it makes a lot more sense if we're talking about Pete Alonso as a former member of the New York Mets, because if Pete's going to be here, now all of a sudden we're going to move Pete in the DH spot after giving him a handsome contract. If Pete is not here, I'm on board with this idea. If he's going to be here, I don't think I'm making a move.
I think the buy-in is the most interesting aspect, because if Juan Soto is willing to do it, I actually do have some confidence that he could do it. You look at what he did with the base running this year. I mean, he is one of the slower players in Major League Baseball, and yet he went out and tied for the National League in stolen bases. Clearly, he has an aptitude for learning. Clearly, he is an elite baseball player, baseball talent. So if anyone could make this transition, I would actually put quite a bit of faith in Juan Soto to do that. That being said, he is your $765 million rock of a player. If you take this to him, and I do think the Mets should have this conversation, maybe even just float it to him to see what he says. But if you take this to him and he says, no, I'm your right fielder, at that point, maybe you have to back off.
Yeah, I mean, I'd hope that Soto would be willing to buy in. First of all, even in the just little clips that we saw right there, he looks like at least he can handle himself. Like Piazza, you knew he could not play anywhere. He barely could play catcher, all due respect. He couldn't play anywhere outside of that. Also, how about the idea, as I'm watching him field grounders at first and looking at least least adequate for a guy who hasn't done it before. How about the idea of keeping your $765 million investment off of his legs, running around in the outfield like that? It does make a lot of sense. I've never thought about it before, so I think it's interesting. You think it's realistic that this can happen?
Look, people talk about Juan Soto from even before he signed that contract. People talk about Juan Soto, like, well, this guy's going to be a DH eventually.
Yeah.
This is actually, to Hannah's point earlier, a way in which you don't necessarily have to say Juan Soto is our DH for 8-9 years at the back end of this contract. If he could do something like this and do it well, all of a sudden you're looking at a different life of the contract for him.